everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Carolyn. I'm a channel, I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I offer these videos for you to help you along your ascension, awakening, and your life journey. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about, and I've alluded to these in past videos, but I've never done a full-on video on this topic. I want to talk about the three major stages that humans can go through in their full life journey. So the reason I want to do this is because I have found it to be incredibly important for us to understand that this awakening and ascension journey is lifelong. Many of us come into this awakening kind of with a big bang, and we're like, oh, that everything I did before kind of didn't lead to this. Oh, but it did. And we start to realize that as we move further and further along in our awakening journey, and we're able to look back and put the pieces together. But the purpose behind this today is so that you can start looking at your own journey, regardless of your age, okay? And be able to go back and look at it and start reflecting on, oh my gosh, big events, things like this. And as you start really understanding the awakening journey and moving through what I'll call the more mature stages of it, you're going to be able to see your own patterns that have led you to where you are today. So I'm going to make a couple of just comments about what I'm going to share with you first for you to take into account as you listen to this. I'm going to talk about very distinct three stages. They sound like they're linear. They are, but they're not at the same time. It depends on us individually. Okay, so what I want you to know is I'm going to give you the specifics and the characteristics of each stage that I have seen, that I have been given, that I have experienced, and that I've seen others experience. But at the same time, know that not everybody's going to experience these in the exact same way. There may be some overlap. There may be some jumping back into. But I want you to know these three stages. And they do go 1, 2, 3, typically. And I'm going to give you my journey because I literally was like this. It was like a definitive line drawn and then a big bulk of time for each of the stages, okay? But a definitive line drawn. Some of you may be that way, but I don't want you to get thinking this doesn't apply to you when you start thinking about your journey and it's not linear big chunks of the stages happening to you, okay? It's to help you understand your journey so you can reflect back on. And the further, I'll just say, kind of the longer we are in this life journey, I guess I'll just say we're able to look back more on, because we have more history, right? We have more years under our belt. And we're able to start to see how we are living this spiritual journey and how we are shifting and changing over time. And I honestly feel it's so important to understand our big picture because it's part of our soul journey. And a lot of the work that I do, well, all of the work that I do in my business, Purple Rain Healing, is to help you unfold your full soul journey. And within that is the awakening journey for those of you going through that we unpack and work on, all right? But we really focus on helping you understand the soul journey, and that includes galactic information as well. Now, what I will say is whether everybody goes through this or not in this lifetime, which we can argue is not going to happen right now, where they're wide awake and mature in their understanding and experience of awakening, because remember, it's wave upon wave upon wave over time. What I'm going to share with you today is the potential that humans have to travel through in their journey. It may not happen in this lifetime is what I will tell you, okay? I think we all know that. All right, so what else do I want to tell you before we get going? What I'll do first is I will talk about the first stage, and then I will give you my examples. I'm going to tell you about my journey because my journey is classic stage, okay? And So that's why I'm giving it to you, so you can actually have an example of what it's like to go through these stages, because I was clearly in strongly in each of these stages throughout my journey, right? But that doesn't mean you will be. So you just take it, and like I said, like I always say, take what resonates, toss the rest aside. But as you get further and further away, just kind of start putting your story together. I think you're going to see it. I really do. But I think this will help you understand awakening and ascension and your own soul journey in a very, I guess, say, different way. Okay, so there are 3 stages that I have been given as channeled information. One day they came through and said, well, there are 3 stages humankind has the opportunity, remember this, to go through. Unconsciously unconscious, unconsciously conscious, and consciously conscious. So I'm going to give you some of the characteristics. It's not all inclusive. You guys could probably add to this too. But these are some of the things that I've either noticed in my experience, in others' experience, or been given as information. Okay? So the first stage is unconsciously unconscious. We don't know what we don't know. I mean, it's kind of as simple as that. And again, like I said, I'm giving you some examples of how this can be. It can also be in degrees that these stages occur for you. So we don't know what we don't know. We are brought up into a mainstream kind of culture, right? And again, like I said, I'll give you my examples here. Like mainstream, very led by our desires, our needs, our habits, our trajectory, often set up by our families, right? Which we'll get to that here in a second. So as an example, in my journey, I was really, truly brought up in what I will just call a classic, traditional, kind of American family back in the day. So my formative years were, I'll just kind of say, not worldly, rather sheltered, but it also, the times are important to note too. It wasn't a global society then, and things were, our vision was smaller with respect to what was outside our back door, right? That's very different now for those of you who are younger and going through this journey, but you're probably going to see some resonance with this regardless. So we grow up in our families, right? And we are taught a certain way. Now, depending on our circumstances, we are given at times opportunities within this first stage of unconsciously unconscious. And oftentimes, I'm not kidding you, it has to do with the difficult times. That's where we start getting cracked open, right? Honestly, if we're just given all the good stuff in life, what is there any reason to be able to look inward and to shift and change? That's why we grow out of the difficulties. And I guess you can say unfortunately, right? But fortunately then we do. But the point in this is we often believe what we're taught, right? We're in institutions and belief systems, whether it be religion or the educational system, where we're kind of put in a box. We also have the news. We have the media. It's even more so now this way for people growing up. There are many more options, I realize, but again, smaller worldview potentially, and not being able to see the bigger picture, lack of self-awareness. And again, this is unconsciously unconscious stage. And it doesn't matter what age we're talking about that these shift. You could become, an older adult and you've just now moved out of the unconsciously unconscious stage. Or you could be a teenager and you've moved out of that. So there is no age, but what I'm giving you is kind of the sense of what could be within your own frame of reference of where society is what I will say, okay? So very led by human desires, needs, habits, that trajectory, kind of mainstream. We believe what we're taught, whether it be our faith, our religion, our family views, the news, politics, our family in politics. We're in a box, okay? We're kind of in a box. We're not aware that we're unaware. We're not aware that we're unaware, right? And we just keep moving along. And honestly, what I will say is kind of the extreme of that, which was really my journey, is that you just have this tunnel vision of Yep, I go to school, I do get good grades, I then go to college or trade school or whatever it is, I get good grades, I socialize, and then I come out into the world, I get my job, and then you focus on career. And you build a career so you can make money. You then find a mate, and you partner with them, or you get married, and then you have your children, and then you keep making money, and you have the suburban life. Now remember, I'm not criticizing any of this at all, okay? But this is kind of the typical, like, you're in a tunnel kind of thing. You don't question anything, you kind of just do the thing, right? We just do the thing that we're all taught to do. It's kind of that idea of, they always give the kind of the picture, they're giving me the picture now, like, say like a busy New York City street, everybody walking down kind of comatose, that back and forth, right? It's the same idea. We aren't aware of what we're not aware of. So the other part of this too is typically we will be very ungrounded. We will be in our heads a lot. We will not be journeying inward in any way. Again, remember, I'm talking the potential for the extremes on this, and they're all degrees. Potential to be very ungrounded, not being self-aware, just moving forward, and oftentimes in ways that other people have wanted us to move forward, okay? No deep thinking or little deep thinking. It might come in blips on the screen, like it did for me when I was in college and I took some religion classes. Oh my gosh. I was like, wow, this is cool. I should have known then, right? But you get little inserts of things, just blips on the screen. For me, it was really blips on the screen because, like I've said, I have very definitive, like, I did this stage, and now I'm doing this stage. Okay, so other characteristics are, again, you can think of traditional. You can think of kind of the idea of, the American dream, the socializing, partying, just having a good time, falling into oftentimes the ways and habits of that kind of living. And again, this doesn't mean you didn't have a good time and it wasn't a great experience, but it's very closed-minded and sheltered, and also traveling down a tunnel, all right? It's basically following along all the things that are thrown to us when we aren't self-aware. Another part of this can also be that we surround ourselves often with other people. It's always about other people. We don't really take that any alone time. Everything is about doing, and achieving, and being, and not being. So again, these are some of the characteristics that really define the unconsciously unconscious stage. Kind of like you're in a bubble. So as far as my journey was concerned, that is exactly where I was. There was everything that I just kind of mentioned here was me. But the thing is, I had this amazing childhood and growing up years. It was wonderful. But the thing is, once I got out of my household, I had to travel a journey for a very, very long time to even become an ounce of what I'll just say, more consciously aware of what was going on in the outside world, questioning anything. Also realizing there was a bigger world out there. Now, today with social media and whatnot, that's easy to do, right? We didn't have that back then. We didn't have any of that. It was just you were kind of spoon-fed all this, and then that's just who you were. This was the way you lived, right? But what occurred with me in my unconsciously unconscious, what I say, stage of my life is that, I very much was in a tunnel. But it was a tunnel of that. And again, remember, we're experiencing what we're meant to experience, but it was a tunnel of just fun and happiness and joy. And yet there were times of difficulty as well, of course, in any family, but that didn't really make me aware of, I guess I'll just say, it made me more aware of the things that we can do to ourselves to cause ourselves harm, I'll just say, in our relationships. But there was nothing big happening. I was just traveling this journey of joy, fun, learning, following the mainstream, going to college, doing all of that. I mean, I literally moved from kind of this magical time in my life growing up, which I feel very fortunate for, into really the first opportunity to, again, open up my perspective, which this is what the awakening journey is about, right? It's about opening up perspective, like questioning things, opening things up, was when I went to college, because that was the first time, honestly, I'd ever been away from home on my own. I know. But back then we didn't really do those things, right? So, but the point is this can relate to anybody now, right? So, having gone to college, this is when doors started to open for me. However, I also stuck with very, what I'll say, classic expectations of how I was to be, and not explore outside my box, is what I will say. I didn't know any better, even though I was at a college, a liberal arts college, where I could have done so many different things and met so many different people, but I didn't. I stayed in my box, okay? I didn't even know I was staying in my box. And this is the thing. We don't know what we're not aware that we're unaware, and keep that in mind. And you're gonna know this when you think back on your life. Now, what I will say is again, these are defined stages. You may have a lot of things pop in, and sometimes your stages are going to be like boom, boom, boom on top of each other, right? So I'm just giving you the sense of what the stages are, and then helping you understand them kind of from my perspective of what I went through, and then you have to figure out how it works for you. But we all go through these stages, or we have the opportunity to, okay? We have the opportunity to. So again, I just plodded along in my kind of little fairy tale world there, opened up in college, really got this to explore, but not in the way that when I look back now, all the things I could have taken advantage of. But again, it wasn't even in my vortex of awareness. There was a whole other world out there at college that I didn't take advantage of because I kept following the same trajectory. So that trajectory continued out of college, which basically meant that I ended up getting married at a very young age. It was always about a boyfriend. It was always about, okay, what am I going to do for my career? That was all I thought of. That was it. And having fun. So, needless to say, I know that's still a thing. We still have 3D needs, and that's important. But at the same time, I was completely unaware of other opportunities out there in a very big world full of so many possibilities and opportunities. And again, remember, our familial structure in which we grow up really makes a difference, which is why part of the awakening has to do with looking at what our beliefs were, looking at how we were raised. And I'm not saying criticizing that, and yes, some of us have had some difficult times, but the point is to be able to say, wait a minute, is that really what I believe? And to be able to step out of those teachings, knowing that for purpose, they were brought to you, but then being able to find yourself. Because remember, this awakening journey is about finding yourself, finding the deep trueness, and going further and deeper than we've ever gone before. Fully becoming self-aware, consciously conscious, okay, which is our third stage. Now, we're going to go ahead. Let's see, do I want to say anything? Oh, another thing with the unconsciously unconscious stage, which can happen is, and you do see this with a lot of people out there that are, I'll just say, not respecting the earth, is no earth connection. Not having an earth connection, not having a cosmic connection, which is also why people are ungrounded, okay? Typically in the unconsciously unconscious stage. We're, again, unaware that we're unaware, but we're unaware of anything outside of what we are just focused on in our human journey. Again, degrees, right? But no earth connection. Yeah, maybe you take a walk every now and then, but do you really look at anything? Or you're outdoors to walk from your car to your to your work, to, as a kid though, here's the thing. When you think about, go back into childhood, like young years, I was outdoors all the time. I was trompsing around, kind of tomboyish, just really feeling the earth. And I remember looking and finding four-leaf clovers and being close to the ground and close to the earth, and just loved being outdoors. I was outdoors all the time. So what we can do in the unconsciously unconscious stage, we can kind of look at this and go, wow, I really moved into this trajectory of kind of mainstream humankind experiences of what were expected. But when I was a child, oh my gosh, there was all that magic and mystery. And oftentimes, many children have spiritual experiences, right? They have little friends, and then that gets shut down. So again, like I said with the overlap, you can have a real consciously conscious young childhood, right? And then it gets shut down oftentimes. So just know these can overlap, but that awareness, I didn't have any of the spiritual experiences, I'll just say, of like, magical friends or seeing anything or knowing anything like that, but I was very connected to the outdoors. And then that continued in my journey, but not in I would say it continued in my journey, but really became strong for me now that I've gone through my awakening. But as we reflect on our life journey, we can look back and really understand how as a child, we may have had pieces of that when we then lost and then we reclaimed. I mean, reclaiming the child, right? In us, reclaiming the child in us. So that's the unconsciously unconscious stage when, like I said, we're in a box. We just keep moving along. We don't question. We're kind of in the matrix, if you want to explain it that way. So the next stage is and this is such an interesting stage, unconsciously conscious. You don't know that you're waking up, but you are. You still have that veil over you, but all of a sudden, your life changes. Now remember, mine are distinct stages, and literally my life changed after I got divorced. And I, for the first time in my life, was living on my own and went through a series of experiences where I ended up spending many years on my own, which was really important for me to be able to start discovering new things. But I didn't know this was part of my awakening journey. It was doing all these things that I really never knew anything about, but that I was very much guided to. Now, these all connect into the unconsciously conscious state where we're starting to be interested in things we've never been interested in. And my unconsciously conscious stage started not when I was young, at all. So I've spent a very long time in the unconsciously unconscious stage, a very long time, and everybody's is going to be different. But the unconsciously conscious stage was this time of me being on my own and exploring, traveling. I had amazing worldwide travel experiences that I would never expected, meeting people of other cultures, of exploring, researching. I spent a lot of time alone, truth-seeking. That's when I was into conspiracy theory, and you never want to get stuck there. You just want to know about it, because a lot of people get stuck in conspiracy theory. But we want to know. We want to know that what we're seeing, and not that I'm saying you want to believe every conspiracy theory, but the idea of this is there's stuff going on that we haven't been told, and understanding that we have to seek our own truth, right? So anyway, point is also another part of this is maybe getting very involved, right? Very politically involved, or protesting, activism, really like exploring out of your box, right? And for me, that's what that was. I was truth-seeking. I was researching. I was genealogy. And you might argue, genealogy, what's that got to do with? That's expanding out beyond ourselves, right? To understand, because then eventually with the consciously conscious, the awakening journey, we bring it back in, right? So we go out and we learn in the unconsciously conscious stage. And there's also a learning phase within the awakening, which we've talked about. But the unconsciously conscious stage is literally you don't know that you're learning things that are going to help you down the road if you choose to wake up, honestly. So you're questioning your beliefs, you're expanding your interests, you might be exploring and traveling and going places, things you've never done before, researching, truth-seeking, getting active like before with public kinds of things. You don't know why you're doing it, you're just doing it. So in the consciously conscious phase, that's when you start understanding, okay, now I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's that observer effect, which we'll talk more about. But the point is we start seeing what we want and what we don't want as we do this exploring. And really what we're doing here is we're retraining our brain, right? We're expanding out beyond the known. All right, in the unconsciously conscious stage, but we don't know why we're doing what we're doing. We don't understand it, okay? And with that comes an expansiveness that allows us to look at the world very differently, rather than, like I said, in the unconsciously unconscious stage, this very myopic view of life. And then you just keep following that trajectory. You keep on the same beliefs pathway. You trust in the same things you trusted in. And I'm not saying, remember, I'm not criticizing that in and of itself. What we're talking about here is the expansion of ourselves, because this is what you do in the unconsciously conscious stage. You expand beyond what you have known before in the unconsciously unconscious stage. And then when the consciously conscious, the awakening happens, then you're able to move back into the self-awareness stage, and you go back into that cocoon, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So the things that I really had happen in what I had a reflection on was my unconsciously conscious stage, was literally the first time in my life to be able to spend almost, I will say, 10 years on my own, literally. Not dating, not anything, just friends, learning, exploring, getting to know myself, but getting to know myself not in an intimate healing kind of way, but getting to know myself in the broader perspective of me as part of the collective and belief systems and institutions and constructs. And oh my gosh, things aren't really the way, I've been told they are. Or are they? And figuring that out for myself. So again, that's a big part of this stage. It is a big, big part. And I, like I said, landed in this stage like overnight. And that's not an exaggeration. It was at the end of a relationship. And I came back home and I was like, wow. And I remember feeling, and this it did tell me something. I just felt this release. I was like, oh my God, I felt like myself for the first time in probably a dozen years. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I still to this day remember that feeling. And that was the start of my exploration of everything else that I hadn't focused on. Because up to that point, I had been focused on, like I said, the traditional trajectory. And it was many, many years of that, of just career, what had been a marriage, what had been, you just do this is what you do. And then, by the time you work toward retirement, and then you retire, and then you die. I mean, seriously. Anyway, needless to say, as we become more aware of the outer world and the things that are truth to us or that aren't truth to us or that we're at least starting to understand more of, then that's the true unconsciously conscious stage. It's a beautiful stage of kind of still being like really naive and not aware, and yet you're learning and you're exploring, okay? And then comes the opportunity. Remember, like I said, we're lined up for this as humans to have the potential for all these stages, and hopefully everybody will go through the consciously conscious stage, which is ultimately waking up, okay? And I probably don't even need to talk about this stage because you're here listening to me, most of you, because you're awakening. But at the same time, I do want to cover this. So oftentimes, and again, this was my journey, but oftentimes it will be an overnight sensation, a big awakening event. Okay, so essentially you've gone through the unconsciously conscious stage, all right, and there is this delineation of all of a sudden you have your dark night of the soul and you wake up in a flash. Now, that's not the way it is for everyone. Again, I'm talking about these stages and how they would look like in a linear situation and exactly how they worked for me, by the way. But needless to say, you can have that overlap. But the point being is we can wake up all of a sudden and move very quickly into the consciously conscious stage. I've actually worked with a lot of people who since 2020 have awoken overnight, all right, with situations in a wide range of possibilities. It's incredible the spectrum of awakening events that there are. So the consciously conscious stage, it actually feels different. You don't really realize it at the time. But what you start realizing is ultimately you're becoming the observer. We've talked about this a lot. to the collective journey and your journey, and you're able to look at this from the outside and go, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. Oh yeah, and then you understand why you're doing the things you're doing, and you're self-aware, you're self-aware, you're self-aware. You grow in self-awareness during the awakening journey. We start making different choices because we've gone through the unconsciously conscious stage of learning, growing, expanding out, and now guess what? We go into the consciously conscious stage and we go back in. We go in to do our self-healing. We go in to do all of the tough stuff, right, that shows up. But at the same time, as we grow in that, we become the observer to what's going on with us. It's like we're watching a movie of ourselves, but we're interacting, okay? But we also understand how to interact in a way that allows us to be the observer and not be so enmeshed in tunnel vision in our journey. So what we do is we take what we've learned and we continue to grow in that. But we grow in that in a way that serves us individually in our awakening journey. What starts to happen is our intuitive nature can open up, right? We can begin to see more clearly the things that we've been learning about. We know more naturally. We just know, and that's part of learning to trust ourselves and that feeling of knowingness. Our energy bodies start to wake up, okay? A lot of us get guided into more of the, I'll just say the esoteric, what may be considered the esoteric, and things like energy healing, crystals, the awareness of energies and frequencies, and it goes on and on, right? The what I'll just call the esoteric, what has been termed as the esoteric. We start understanding more of the galactic nature. Guess what? All of a sudden we're connecting to Earth again. We're connecting to nature, and we're connecting to the skies, to the galactic. Per what I talked about earlier, in the unconsciously unconscious stage, most of us are ungrounded and we're not connected to the cosmos. We're not connected to the earth. So we're just hanging out here. But what occurs in our consciously conscious stage is we realize we are connected to what they always call the ethers, the cosmos, and we are connected to the earth. And it becomes a profound connection for us. We start recognizing moon events. Like, I didn't know anything about the moon. I hardly ever noticed there was a full moon until I went through awakening. And now it's such an important part of my journey. I'm always looking up at the stars, always wanting to see the Milky Way and traveling somewhere to try to see it. I'm connected into the earth. I'm wanting to garden. I want to hike all the time. So remember, it's that tethered connection. Here we've been hanging out here all along, right? Just spinning around ungrounded. And then when we go through awakening, we start connecting to the cosmos and to the earth more fully, and there's where our cord is, okay? That's where our cord energetically is, to be able to feel the fullness of this journey, because we are connected. But the point is in the consciously conscious stage, these things start to evolve for us. You may start to feel that you want to be outdoors more. You can't really be inside a lot. You can't be around big crowds. Remember, your energy body is shifting and changing too in this stage. This is when we start changing friendships, relationships. What doesn't serve us any longer, we make choices on. And the universe starts to come along, spirit starts to come along to visibly assist us in our journey. We start connecting in with our spirit team and our guides and our angels. We start in this process of knowing that we are supported. And as we start being aware of this, signs and messages show up. The numbers are usually one of the first things that show up. Repeating numbers. And then we start, as we follow this journey, knowing, oh my gosh, I'm being guided on this journey. We have our help with us, and we start knowing this. We see magical things happen day to day. And we start, like I said, shifting in our core beliefs, shifting in the understanding of what works for us. Lots of us change out of religion and the faith that we may have grown up in. We also are less focused in duality, and we see things as a whole, and we see purpose in both sides. We start becoming that observer to things. We make choices as to what serves us now, rather than continuing down a path of what we have been expected to do all along, right? So we shift in our work experiences. We shift in our familial experiences, our friends. We gain in our self-awareness to the point of we actually then start acting on things and shifting and changing our life. Not just being aware of it, that something doesn't serve us any longer, but no longer being able to tolerate doing the same thing over and over again. and that doesn't serve us. So this is the consciously conscious awakening stage. And I've just kind of hit on the tip of the iceberg. But the point is this is a stage where we come back into ourselves. We come back into ourselves and we determine what our trajectory is moving forward. And we continue to grow in the spiritual journey. Now, what happened with me was, again, I have a strong delineation. I had these 3 stages, like a chunk just came down and landed on me, where I was completely unaware of any of this. Like I've said before, and this is not an exaggeration, I only knew what a tarot card was because I'd had a reading back when I was really young, but never had any other kind of exposures to anything esoteric. I thought that was meant for other people. I just didn't understand it. It wasn't my world. And when I went through my dark night of the soul, which was an overnight sensation of my partner who I was taking care of, who had brain cancer and who passed on, I woke up overnight. Overnight. Everything was different that next day, and that started my trajectory of the consciously conscious stage. All the things I just talked about started to happen to me. And clearly, we have things happen the way they're meant to happen because there's a purpose in that unfolding the way it's unfolding. For me, I had to go through this super fast, and I did super, super fast, and I followed the trajectory of all my intuitive gifts opening up because I was supposed to have this business. I was supposed to do the channeling of the poetry. I was with the Light Keepers. I was supposed to offer these videos to help people and guide them through the spiritual awakening journey. So I had to be on a fast trajectory. We're all different in what we're here to do and why we're here to do it and to what degree we're doing it. So my self-awareness expanded exponentially. The healing journey just shot off just even in the last couple of years. It doesn't end. It continues on from here, and we continue to mature. And I will say this, there are levels within levels. So within the consciously conscious stage, there are stages of growth and maturity and frequency and vibration, and we keep rising in our frequency and the dimensions that we work in day to day. So it is a never-ending process of continuing to become more conscious. Because remember, we have been in the muck as a collective for so long, and even individually we can say, well, I was pretty aware. Well, but we're not ever at all where we were all those eons ago and where we can be and where we are going. So just know that every single one of us has growth, opportunity, and continued maturity in this process. And what I will say is it doesn't end. Okay, it's not like we get to a goal and we go, okay, we're done. I've awakened. It's constant growth. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to do as souls, is to learn and continue through this process. Whether we ever get to the consciously conscious stage, and I'm speaking to people that aren't listening to this video, obviously, because you're going through the awakening journey or you're thinking you are, right? But there are stages of this, and not every single person in this particular lifetime has signed up for being consciously conscious. They may be going through their journey, but how aware are they that they are? Which means many can be in the unconsciously conscious stage. But again, we talk about this is the way it's meant to be. Everybody's unfolding as they're meant to because it's wave upon wave upon wave in the collective over time. All right? It is not in what I have been told in this one lifetime consciousness of Carolyn and you all that the whole thing's going to shift and change overnight and everybody's going to wake up. This is why we come and go out of our lives, and we come back in to then add to the collective journey and add to that frequency, add to the experience that we had that we then bring back in our cellular memory. So those of us that are awakened now, preaching to the choir here, right? We are the ones leading the way into this amazing time where people will be coming out of these stages that we're just talking about, moving into this consciously conscious awareness stage and joining us in this amazing spiritual journey to become all we can be and that we know we are, but we're just now finding ourselves again as a collective. So I just want to thank you for everything you're doing in your own journey, because here's the thing. Yes, it's an internal journey, but you affect everyone else. honestly, if you're not doing this for yourself, you're doing it for the collective. But just know that it can get, I know, arduous and like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. Or I've been doing this so long. This is the journey. But you're here to help the collective. Whether you feel you are or aren't, your light is needed. You're grounding light in by doing your work, by doing your healing work, by centering in yourself and making choices that serve you. You're affecting the collective because remember, we are all one. What you do matters. What you do changes. What you do with your heartfelt love for yourself, first and foremost, and then that exudes out to others, matters in every little bit of the way that you grow in your consciousness and self-awareness, opening up your heart to yourself and to others. So today we've talked about, again, kind of the tip of the iceberg, these three big phases: unconsciously unconscious, unconsciously conscious, and consciously conscious. Again, they can be stacked on top of each other, but typically they're a little more spread out. Mine, on the other hand, and was giving you some of my experiences, was very linear, blocks of time throughout my lifetime. And again, it's going to depend a little bit on where you're at in your journey age-wise, because you've got fewer years if you're younger to reflect back on, but you're going to be able to at least take a look at some of that, I believe, and you're going to, especially if you've moved into your awakening journey. And remember too, some people's phases are going to be shorter amounts of time. Okay, if you're younger and you have awakened now, I don't know, let's just say you're in your 20s, 30s, whatever. You've awakened now, you have less time having been in the unconscious stage. And maybe you never were, because what's happening too is we're having the new children coming in and they're just going to be awake. Nobody's going to squash them. They're going to be awake. Yes, they have to go through the human journey and they'll go through these stages, but they won't be as, I would just say, as severe. I spent most of my life in, and I laugh because I'm like, oh my God, in unconsciously unconscious stage. I had a wonderful unconsciously unconscious stage, but I'm going to tell you right now, most of choices I made didn't serve me, other than career. So needless to say, with respect to like relationships, I'll just say. But needless to say, we come out of all those constructs like, wait a minute, that's not for me. Why did I do that in the first place? When I look back, I'm like, that wasn't even for me. I just did it because everybody else did it, right? Same idea. So anyway, point is when you're younger, you've gone through you started your awakening journey, you're going to have less amount of time in certain stages, and you're going to spend much more of your time in the consciously conscious stage, right? Or the unconsciously conscious stage too, right? I just happen to spend a ton of time in the unconsciously unconscious. And so I guess I don't really have anything else more to say about that, but what I wanted to frame up for you today is this is a lifelong journey. Well, it's a soul journey, but anyway, we're just talking about this incarnation now. But anyway, the three major stages, and within that, I have a video on the phases within the awakening journey. Okay, so you've got your three big stages, and here's your consciously conscious, and within that I have a video on the various phases we can go through in the awakening journey. And if I can find that video, because sometimes my titles don't fully reflect for me to remember back on what the video is, I'll try to find it and I'll put it in the link. But most of my videos do have to do with spiritual awakening or some kind of consciousness raising. So again, if you just kind of keep going through my videos, for those of you who are new to my channel, you will certainly find that. Anyway, I think I'm going to finish up today. I would just say we are here now in the, oh my gosh, it doesn't feel like how it could possibly even be early March, but we're going to be coming into the equinox here soon, and it is my intention to do a quick video update for you on the energies around the equinox, and that's my intent at this point. That's probably the next time you're going to see me, is that week before spring equinox, and in the case for those of you in the southern hemisphere, it's your fall equinox. But needless to say, it's the equinox for all of us. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with you today. Remember, purplerainhealing.com for all of my services, where you can check out spiritual awakening mentoring with me, distance energy healing, and channeled messages. I would love to work with you if you would like to learn more about your soul journey, as well as get some assistance on your awakening journey through channeled information and practical advice. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.